Ed Blakely has served in different capacities under a succession of presidential administrations, has guided government policy on urban planning.
We're not listening to him. And Bolton will not listen to Trump. Bolton's going to run his program and his agenda as he did at the UN. He was never confirmed in the UN job. The Senate would not confirm him. A Republican Senate would not confirm him. So he's been out there as a Fox commentator, working for right-wing think tanks. So he's more of a danger to the president than he is a help. And I think the president will find that out. Now, the president also has judged all of his lawyers because they didn't look right and speak right and say good things for him. But a lawyer has to give you advice. And that's something he's not willing to accept.
Yeah, in fact, last week you said Trump was sort of flirting with obstruction of justice, and you said, can't he find a lawyer to tell him what not to do? It seemed like a good question because there's been a few reports this week. A lot of legal professionals around Washington and I think New York as well have been refusing to join the Trump legal team. But he is lawyering up and looking to go to the mattresses in the Mueller investigation.
Well, he's not lawyering up in the sense that he's getting top-notch legal people. He may be hiring lawyers, and those lawyers will report to the lawyers he has. But he has not been able to get top-notch legal help. Jared Kushner has top-notch legal help. One of the guys who worked for Clinton. He has not been able to get this because a lawyer looks for a client who will take his advice. And if I were a lawyer, particularly one with a lot of reputation at stake, I would not want him as a client. So that's his problem. It's not the case, it's the individual.
Now, I want to circle back to Jared Kushner in a moment, but the Stormy Daniels interview we spoke about a little bit last week. This week it is out. It was aired on 60 Minutes. The most significant detail, I think, was Daniels claimed she was threatened with implied violence by a man in Las Vegas who told her not to talk about Donald Trump. Personally, I'm of the view that politicians' personal lives are completely fair game. I think if they want to legislate in other people's lives, their lives should be fair game as well. I don't know about you, Ed, but what is your take on this one?
There are two things about this interview. One, it was underwhelming. Let's face it, it was much like the Republican letter on the Russians, the Nunes report.
Mm-hmm.
There was very little in it. There was very little in what she had to say that we hadn't heard already. The second thing is these threats may have come from one of Cohen's agents. He is known to be threatening, a very violent person. He could have hired a street guy to do this for him, whatever. I don't think there was any serious intent in all this, so it seems a little Mickey Mouse. I think the bigger thing she has on him, though, is making him spend all this money on attorneys, and to do that, he has to expose himself as the person that did it. So Donald Trump is now leading this legal team. This is a very dangerous place for the President of the United States to be. He should have just let it go and let it ride out.
I think looking at the bigger picture, though, to me, assuming this story is true, this Stormy Daniels story
it's true.
Yeah.
He hasn't denied it.
Yeah.
This is one he has not denied.
So going off that assumption, though, it proves that Trump has absolutely not been a careful boy like he sort of claimed he has been. The Russians, they may have this tape on him that was alleged in that report by that UK agency when they were looking at Trump during the 2016 election, this Russian water sports tape. These kind of things can obviously be used to blackmail or to harm him. Now, you said the Russians might be getting fed up with Trump, so fed up that they would essentially throw him under the bus. The expelling of 60 Russian diplomats this week, it's related back to that British spy poisoning in the UK. Surely that's got to feed into those tensions.
Well, first of all, Trump has never expelled them. It has been by the State Department and by Kelly. Donald Trump has distanced himself from any of those things. Trump sees his relationship with Putin, not with the Russian government. Putin has something on him. There are two places where he has something on him. One is the financial stuff. Some money was laundered somehow to keep Trump afloat. And we know this because he could not get any loans on Atlantic City. He could not get any loans anywhere, but all of a sudden money started coming in. And it started coming in through back doors. The second is, if Trump was with Stormy Daniels is not the best-looking kid on the block in Moscow. So anyone who's been to Moscow knows they got plenty of very good property. And if Trump is a person whose eyes wander, certainly it would have wandered there. Even his own security guard or bodyguard said when they were in St. Petersburg, they chased off 5 girls. He chased off 5 girls. Then he went to bed. What happened to the 5 girls? We really don't know. The other thing I know, having been in St. Petersburg and in Moscow, I assumed I was on film all the time, even when I was brushing my teeth. So if there is tape, they got it.
Now, I just want to talk about this week. An estimated 800,000 people descended on Washington, D.C. for what might be the city's largest ever single-day protest. This was the March for Our Lives protest following the Parkland shooting, making demands for more gun control. You've compared the movement to the anti-Vietnam War movements of the 1970s. What's your take on this week?
I think this is very similar, and it's very similar to the Martin Luther King. Simple message. In Vietnam was not just get out of Vietnam, but don't draft me as a soldier. Moms, don't take my son. Women, don't take my boyfriend. The other piece that is similar is the call that Martin Luther King gave to action for good. The kids are tired of seeing bad acting people. The NRA is really hurting itself by going after these young people because that just flips another adult on the side of the kids. So we're going to see if the NRA keeps this up and if the Republicans keep holding back on legislation, an incredible landslide. I don't know whether this is going to happen or not. Don't want to make any predictions, but I could see the Republicans losing up to 50 seats just on this issue alone. So if they lost 50 seats, that'd give the Democrats 20 to 25 up. And it's possible they could lose the Senate. If those days came, the only wall there would be a wall around the White House.
Just briefly wanted to touch on this one as well when it comes to guns. Following the Baton Rouge shooting of Alton Sterling, there's been a report released that says only 1/3 of black Americans nationwide have confidence in the police to do the right thing. Ed, even just as a black man who was born in America, grew up in America, what's your feeling on this one?
Well, my feeling is this. Clearly, the issue goes well beyond the police. The people who are in prison are predominantly blacks. For a crime that a black commits, he goes to prison. A white gets parole. So racism is being acted out with the police as it was in South Africa. So black people don't have confidence in the police because it's the judicial system they don't have confidence in that deals with black people. A black person chewing gum and spitting it on the street goes to jail. A white person is smiled at. So black people are facing an intimidation force, not a police force. So that confidence is not going to be restored very soon. As long as, I believe it's 1/3 of the male black population is incarcerated. And those people have children. So this is not looking good.
Circling back to politics, a record-breaking 31 House Republicans will not be standing for re-election in 2018. No surprises there, given what you've already predicted, Ed. But how are Republicans actually going to fill these gaps?
They're not. Most of those people are in seats that Hillary won, and they won them by very low margins or where they were very poor candidates. The Democrats would be very smart to use a very simple philosophy: put up a decent person, a man or woman that's just decent and clean, and let the Republicans try to destroy him. Those kinds of negative ads will play into the hands, as they did in Alabama, as they did in Pennsylvania, the hands of good-thinking people. And other people will sit on their hands. So a swing of 50 to 60 seats is really possible. And I don't see the Republicans doing anything other than destroying themselves, because Bannon put up his people. Then there'll be other Republicans putting it up. They will fight one another, and it'll look very ugly.
And back on Trump, the wall, the infamous symbol of Trump's 2016 campaign. Back then he was going to build a wall along the Mexican border. Mexico was going to pay for it. Mexico hasn't paid for it. They can't convince the American taxpayers to pay for it. And Trump has now apparently been pushing the Pentagon to divert military funding to building the wall under the guise of national security. This is sounding like very desperate talk, Ed.
Well, he shouldn't have said anything. He should have just done it. Because the military might be able to do something like that. But now that he said it, the military is hostile to Trump. It's pretty evident. The gay lesbian issue, the military has not implemented that. If you look at the deployments, they have not implemented any deployments he suggested. He hasn't written anything down on paper. As soon as he does, he'll be attacked by both sides of the aisle. So I think this is more diversion than action, something that popped out of his head. But if it sees light of day, it will not be through the U.S. military. Even if he orders it, and I don't know how he could because it's an appropriation, and Congress would have a lot to say about that. The only thing you have to do is wait him out until the next Congress comes, and that'll be in less than 12 months.
And just finally, Ed, Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, is in even more trouble with reports the White House is probing two loans worth more than $500 million, $500 million to the Kushner family business, and whether they might have violated any criminal laws or federal ethics regulations. What's the big picture?
Well,
on this
he did
one?
violate the federal ethics regulations. You cannot do personal business in the White House. So that's known. The question is, does it go deeper? And it sounds like it does. He phoned from the White House to people in Saudi Arabia seeking loans. That is not just a no-no. It is a federal crime. Now, what's Ivanka going to do? Trump Jr.'s wife got a divorce to save her fortune. Ivanka should get a divorce to save her name. I think that's where we're headed. And if you look at what Mueller's doing, there's three strategies. One of them, go after the money. Jared is tied up in that. Number two, go after what Trump does all the time, impeding the investigation. And number three, go after the family. And it looks like, how can you fight on three fronts? So if Jared Kushner is out, his wife is out, that part of the family's gone, Trump Jr. is in deep trouble. He's obviously lied to the FBI. It looks like he will have to go to jail, or at least get some time and some penalties. It looks like this money laundering stuff is really coming to light with the seashells and so on. And Trump keeps tweeting about who he's going to fire next. That's all obstruction of justice. I don't know. Well, maybe. Easter's coming up. People have risen from the dead. He may well.
Ed and I'll be back next week to talk the latest in American news and politics. Subscribe on iTunes and Whooshka to stay up to date, and show us some love on Facebook and Twitter at US.